BraveMaker show is hosted by Tony Gapperstone. Thanks for tuning in. It's showtime.
Hey, it's showtime, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. This is episode 182. I am Tony Gapperstone. I'm coming at you live from Redwood City, California at the BraveMaker studio. I'm going to do an inclusive visual description. I'm a Caucasian man wearing glasses with a black beanie today and a pink shirt in my pink and faux green studio with like flowers. Those are sunflowers above me. And I love getting to do this show. I've been doing this for 182 episodes. It's so fun. And I'm a filmmaker and an actor up in the San Francisco Bay Area. And you can find me on the socials at Tony Gapperstone everywhere, or my website is tonygap.com. And every week I get to talk to a new guest. My co-host, Christina Jackson, is not doing the show for some time. She's going to take a quick or long, we don't know, hiatus. Hopefully she'll come back in the future to be a guest host. But for now, it's just me and our special guest. And today we have a true multi-hyphenate. So would you welcome to the show, Keena Ferguson. Keena, welcome.
Hi.
So I'm glad you're here. We almost had you on the show last month, and then we had, I think, COVID or sickness or something happened, but we're so glad. And then you had plans changed today. I was like so glad because you could have said, Tony, could we reschedule today? But like a true hustler, you made it happen today.
That's right. I wouldn't have done it.
So
yeah,
why don't you go ahead? Yeah, why don't you go ahead and do your visual description and tell us where you're from and where you're video calling in from today.
Okay. So I am wearing a gray sweater, curly hair with two Bantu knots up top, simple gray background. And just here, I am from Jefferson City, Missouri, and I moved to Los Angeles by way of the Ohio State University after being a dance major there, graduating from there, and then moving to LA. What else did you say about my origin story?
Well, we'll get into the origin story, but that's a good start for now. We're so glad that you are with us and zooming in from LA. So yeah, let's jump in because you are a true multi-hyphenate. You do all of the things. Do all of the things. So I'll let you go ahead. Tell us and tell our viewers who are watching live or on the replay or listening to the audio podcast just a little bit about yourself and your acting and your filmmaking in Los Angeles.
Yeah, so I am started off as a dancer, been a professional dancer since I was 13, dance major in college, choreographer. I'm also an actor in LA, a filmmaker, writer, producer, voiceover artist, and director. I don't know if I said director. So, and recently an episodic television director. So,
ooh, that's amazing.
Yes, super. It still blows me away. But yes, so that's, so yes, a true multi-artist, as I like to say, or multi-hyphenate. And I always just say at the end of the day, though, I'm a storyteller, right? And so how I choose to tell these stories is different every day. Sometimes I'm writing, sometimes it's through voiceover, sometimes it's through dance, and it just changes. And that's the beauty to me of being a storyteller and why I was always against the, like, you got to pick one. Like, are you an actor? Are you a director? Are you a writer? Like, I'm all of them. Yeah. Just ask me on what day, Now,
I want to hear about your backstory kind of in line with this question, because I kind of agree and understand that need sometimes people have to push back on the choosing one. Do you feel, and I'd love to hear about your backstory, do you feel like you truly love them all? Do you feel like it's by way of necessity for way? Is it a combination of all of it? I'd love to hear a little bit about how you got into everything and where it all started for you.
Yeah, so I don't know that I feel like dancing, acting and directing, I probably love equally, right? Like all of them, I kind of like, if I'm not doing one, I start to really, really miss it. Um, and people have always wanted me to choose, but I do believe that when you're a true artist and you have stories that you must tell, how you decide to tell them can change depending on what you feel the need of that story is. And so, because of that, I have always pushed back when people decided, like, oh, well, I don't understand. Are you this or are you this? And I'm like, you can't put me in a box, which is how I even got to doing my one person show out the box, because I was tired of people trying to say, like, this is the way in which you should be doing your life. Um, so so I do feel like now it's changed. But when I moved to LA, I couldn't tell my reps that I was creating projects and doing shows on the road because they didn't want to hear it. They only wanted to know that I was here for acting. Anything else was like, you need to make a decision. And what's funny is now the irony is that now all agents want are for everyone to be doing a million different things. And you're like, yeah, that's what I was trying to say years ago, you know.
Yeah. So
It's been interesting to see that shift happen, because I felt like I was always pushing against that. And I was always like, man, you guys could have really used this as leverage for so many other things. But, all they could see was like the old way of doing things. And I was already coming from it from a new place.
I'm dealing with this in the screenwriting stuff right now, where you keep hearing people saying, write in your lane, write the one thing, and I still don't feel like it's changing all that much. I
Mhm.
still hear the pitchings, the project pitching opportunities I'm getting, and or the rep, general meetings and stuff, really kind of pushing that. So are you comedy? Are you drama? Are you
Right.
faith-based? Are you this? And I don't know. I don't like it. I really don't. I think it'll change probably eventually too. And I see some people getting the privilege to write different genres and different things, but it's very few and far between. So
Right.
I think you're right, where it's like you were ahead of your time. Now you're seeing a lot of actors have production companies, and like that's
Oh,
almost expected in a way. Like you've got to generate your own stuff. So can you
oh
tell
yeah.
me about that? Talk to me about you. I know you're acting, you're writing, you're directing, you're doing all of these things. Talk about what's like present right now. Like, what are the things that you're doing, and what are you most proud of at the moment of all your work that's out in the world?
Yeah. My one woman show is something that I'm super proud of. That's the show I won the NAACP award for. And for me, the reason I'm most proud of that is because it's something I never thought I would do. I was never a person who was like, I want to do a one person show. I was always like, I don't want to do that. But I'm also a person who believes that, again, when a story hits you, and something came to me, and the thing that that show taught me was that when I tap in, there really isn't anything I can't do. Like I tapped in and I did these characters and I did all these different things, and it really did let me know, like, man, this well runs so deep, and we just keep taking these life experiences and putting them out into the world and helping create conversations in dialogue. Where I am now is I'm in post on the television show for AMC that I directed. I am doing a bunch of voiceovers for video games and a couple of TV shows. And I am teaching my iPhone filmmaking courses in other cities. And I am also creating my next project. I'm working on my next film. My current film backlog is doing the festival routes after its time with Blavity Distribution. And now it's doing festivals. And then I'm creating my next piece because I'm ready to shoot something else.
So great. So did y'all hear that? One woman show, short film, doing the circuit, directed a TV episode for AMC. I mean, that's a lot of stuff. And I think I appreciate this too, because things take so much time in this business. It feels like if you don't have these things multiple, it's like kind of like you're cooking for like for Thanksgiving in a way.
Mhm.
And you have to have like start the mashed potatoes and get the turkey, and you're doing with the vegetables, and you got the appetizers and all these things in order to really like have this main meal. It's like you've got to be having these little tiny projects along the way, because they're editing, they're scoring, you're developing and all that kind of. Is that kind of like what you found, is that these projects are taking years at a time. So you're saying I have all these things because you've been working on them for years. Can you kind of talk about that a little bit?
Let's see. So when it's my own projects, I am very deadline driven. I am not a person who likes to take a really long time on my projects. So I will say in that regard, I'm like, when I'm working on this project, I'm getting it to completion, right? So I'm very much so like, here's the project, here's when I'm shooting, here's my editing schedule, here's when I need it to be released. And
Mhm.
I'm just a stickler on those deadlines for that. Um, when it comes to the writing process, sometimes if I don't give myself a deadline, then it will be in the mix and in the works for a while.
Mhm.
So sometimes I have to wrap my mind and go, when do you want this project to be done? When does it speak to you to be, that feels, but when does it speak to you to be done? Like, I want to be shooting this by May. Great. In order to shoot this by May, the script needs to be done, however long, whenever. Um, but when I'm learning on the directing side, especially for TV, is that like, although they have that schedule, it is like, I started that process back in October, and it's not going to come out till June, right? And so there is that point of as an artist where it's like, we've shot everything, now we're in post, and there's those moments where you're like, gosh, well, what am I doing now? And you're like, oh right, yeah, I'm in post, I'm editing, but you're not like actively feeling like you're like in the midst of a shooting. So it can feel like downtime. And so what I like to try to do is I really am always like, what else do I want to create? What else do I want to say? Because I think that's a good analogy, what you said. Like, you're making these little bitty pockets at the same time while the big feast is getting ready. And at the end of the day, we don't know what the big feast is going to be, right? Like, I think that's the beauty of always having these little side dishes, if you will, right? Is you don't know when the big feast is going to happen. My 1 minute film was not something I considered a big feast. My 1 minute film was something I considered a little side thing that I'm doing over here just because it's a 1 minute film. It's like not a big deal. And then it was a thing that like took off, and I was like, oh, the feast is happening now, to use your analogy,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And it's like, man, the thing that I think I learned more than anything is keep creating,
Yeah.
keep doing what you love to do, keep having the passion to do it. And once you do that, it will show, everything will show up. If that makes sense.
Yeah. So, okay, and this is also cool too. You've got 1 minute things you're doing. You've got your short film, 7 minutes, 10. You're not limited. Sometimes I think a lot of filmmakers don't create because they have this really limited view of what they think that film should be. If I don't do a short film that's 10 minutes, or if I don't do
Mhm.
my feature film, right, then I'm not a filmmaker. And I go, no, like write a short film that's a minute, that's 5 minutes. And you're teaching people how to do it on their iPhones. And a lot of people talk about this, like, yeah, make a film on your iPhone. You're
Right.
teaching people to do it.
Right.
So, what are some tips? I have people who are watching us live and will listen on the replay, but what are some things that you would tell people to do that maybe they feel like they're obstacles, they're scared, they don't know where to start? What are the things that help people actually make it happen? Like for me, I always say, put it on your calendar. If it's not on your calendar, it's not going to happen. Sounds like you're the same way. Deadlines,
I
due
am.
dates.
I am. I do a deadline for my one woman show, for my first short film I ever did. I booked my location before I had booked my actors, before I had the money. I
Mhm.
already was like, bam, I have these locations. I got to shoot now. Now there's literally nothing I can do. I have to shoot. Even with my one woman show, I booked the theater for like 3 months out, but I had not finished writing the show. I didn't have my production manager, and I had like a band. I didn't have any of that stuff yet. Right. But that's the first thing, is like, make it a non negotiable, and everything else has to work around it, right? Because when I did my first short and I booked my location, of course I got an audition, and of course then I was like, oh well, I have an audition. And then I got a call back, and then I was put on a veil, and then I booked it, right? And I was like, well, I am not available these 2 days. Like, I'm not. I've already got something there, right? And so I think when you make that decision to do something, everything else falls into place. You know, the other thing I would say is, I'm like, do what moves you. Like,
Mhm.
get away from this, kind of what you were saying earlier. Like, what story are you telling? Do you write this way, or are you just drama, or like just whatever it is? If it's quirky and funky, and you're like, I don't know, and it's 90 seconds, great, do it. Right? Because you don't know who needs your content until you actually put it out there. So it's a disservice to what you want to do, and it's a disservice to the people who are waiting to actually have and receive your content, right? Again, I use the 1 minute film as, I mean, I use it because it's like, that was just a child. It was like, okay, yeah, it was originally like, I don't know, 12, 15 page. And I was like, do you need all of that? No. What do you do in a minute? And it came because I had won a small grant. And I was like, And then that's the thing that like people didn't need all the other stuff. They just needed that minute to have the impact. I would say the third thing is that don't allow money to be your obstacle. I know that that feels like, yeah, right. But how can you find ways to save? I'm always like, quality is important. You don't want to sacrifice that. But do you have to shoot 3 days? Can you shoot 2? Does your story need those extra 2 people that are standing over there that say 2 lines, or can you get rid of them and just somehow make sure the story is elevated in another way, right? And then I would say, yeah, as far as the iPhone goes, don't be afraid to use your iPhone. Like that way you're not worried about like, I got to get a camera and I got like, you don't, So at this point now, there's so much technology. There's no reason why you can't do literally whatever it is that you want to do, or find a way to do it.
Find a way to do it. I love that. We use the phrase brave your way in BraveMaker. Like, we got to brave it. Brave your way. Take a chance on yourself. I also hear you saying that too. Believe in yourself.
Yep.
I have this feature film script I'm working on right now. It's my second feature. And our team is trying to figure out, okay, we have one budget already raised. We're waiting because we think we're going to get the next round of like, and I keep saying like, I don't know if we're going to get that next round of money. So with this script, I'm going to go through 100 things and I'm condensing characters like what you're saying. I think this is one of like the easiest things you can do when you're dealing with budget is make it shorter. And sometimes shorter is better, right? Shorter films are great. A 1 minute, 3 minute film, guess what? You will get more festivals the shorter your film is because it's easier to program.
Right. And that's exactly right. I tell people all the time, like, you don't need a 30-minute short. Like,
don't do it. Don't do a 30-minute short. No way.
And people will send me their scripts for things to like do script coverage on and stuff. And I'm like, you can really get rid of like 10 pages, like right away. That will not make 1 ounce of difference in this story. Right. But I know that and I would also say, try not to be so attached, right? Which is hard, but it's easy to see your project and be like, no, I definitely need this scene. No, I definitely have to have that. But it's like, take a step back and really see, like, do I have to have this? Right? Like, there are sometimes scenes that we think are cool that are like, oh, this is really great. But maybe it's not in the final cut. Maybe it's just in your director's cut, right? But maybe we don't need everything. And that was hard for me on my first short. I was like, no, I can't cut that. I was fighting. And at the time, my director was like, you don't need it. And then it turned out, I was like, man, I did not need that, So I think it's really good to do that. And I'm glad you're doing that, Tony. I would also say, remember that there are resources available, right? Can you get your crafty taken care of by donation, right? That's cutting something out of your budget. If you can get your crafty taken care of, even if it's for half of the time from donations, you've cut out some of your budget that you can either put someplace else or save money on, right? So those are the kind of things I try to teach people, are like, pick these things that you can find things in. And features are, features are tough because they do require the money. They do require certain things. But back when I had my deal, it was like we were using like 3 or 4 locations max. Like, that's it. If it can't fit in here, then you know what I mean? And that's tough, but otherwise your project sits on the shelf for a very, very, very long time, and then nobody ever hears or sees it. And so you're not changing the world or minds or hearts anyway. So
that's it. And I feel for so many filmmakers, because I know all the forces that work against us to get our projects done. But if you keep allowing those forces to keep you down, it just will never get done. So I say make something, and even if it feels like it's not what you wanted in the first place, it's okay. Make something. You have to complete something, because then you can complete the next thing. But if you're not going to complete the first thing, you're never going to get the second thing done. So make some crappy things. It's bound to happen. Yes, maybe the sound isn't what you wanted. Yes, maybe the production design or the actors aren't what you wanted, but you've got to start somewhere, and that'll gain confidence, and then maybe that will attract some money. So I want to talk to you about, so that's like real low budget, no budget filmmaking. Those are some great tips. Let's talk about the next layer in your life. You've done a lot of things that have been, you've had budget, you've had good actors and stuff. Like, for instance, your short film backlogged that is doing, is it on Blavity right now? People can watch it on Blavity. Is that right?
Yeah. Our deal's done now. Now we're doing now we can do festivals. Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, I saw it. You shared it with me. It was super great. I loved it. Very relevant to what's going on. Can you talk a little bit about that film and about what you learned making that? Because you had some budget. It was a Screen Actors Guild low budget short. Is that right?
Yeah, all of my films have been through SAG-AFTRA, just because I'm SAG-AFTRA, so I always wanted people to use SAG-AFTRA actors. Yeah, so that was a film that I actually wrote years ago, probably 10 years ago, 9 years ago. And again, I was itching to make something. I was like, I got to make something, I can't keep being a creator if I haven't made anything recent. So I got that script and I pared that script down. Again, it was a little bit longer. I pared it down. I sent it to a couple of friends who were like, yeah, why aren't you making this? I was like, that's the answer I needed. Why aren't I making it? And at the time I was like, I don't have a budget. So what I did, and again, I'm always like, how can you think out the box? My birthday was coming around. My birthday's on May 13th. And it just hit me in the car. And I just jumped on Instagram and I was like, I know people love to buy you drinks on your birthday. I know people are like, I want to take you out for coffee. $13 is all you got to donate for me to make my next film. That can be your drink that you bought me for my birthday. And that actually opened the door, because $13 for people were like, oh yeah. And to your point, people had seen my other films. So they were like, oh, I love the work you do. So I'm happy to donate because I love the work you do. Right.
You built an audience, you built some patrons.
Audience, right. So then those people were like, yes, I'd love to be a part of whatever you're going to do next. And that really opened up the floodgates, and money came in for weeks. Right. I knew I didn't have the bandwidth to do a GoFundMe or Kickstarter. I just didn't have the bandwidth at the time. And then that drew the attention of a producer who came to me, who said, I'd love to work with you. And then he brought the rest of the money. And then we made that film. And, I shot it in 2 days. Again, I'm like, let's get in, get out. I shot it in 2 days. I had it edited within a couple of weeks. Sound, everything else. And then before, I guess another kind of tip is, before your film is even ready to go out, I'm already starting my marketing. Right? I'm already starting reaching out to people. I'm already starting like what needs to get this ball rolling. Because what you don't want is to complete your project and then now you're trying to, and now your film's sitting. It's been 2 months, it's been 3 months, it's been 4 months. But you want people to be like, yeah, send it to me as soon as you get it. You're like, great. I've got a list of 15 people who want my film as soon as it's ready. Great. You'll have it in whatever time. Right.
So what does that look like, Keena? Does that look like you're reaching out to PR people, to other producers, to podcast? How is that practically, like relationally work out for you?
It's a mix, right? Depending on the project, right? So I always say, like, it depends on what the project is. This project was very socially conscious. It was very relevant to what was happening in the world with pro-choice and all those things. So then my immediate thought was, okay, what are organizations that are trying to get this story out there? Right. So then that was my what's the word I'm looking for? That was my connect. Then it was like, let me make a list of people that I would like to work with, that I would like to partner with, that I would want this film to reach certain audiences. So that's how it looked for that. And then usually what happens with that is that spawns other things, right? So I'm always like, who's your audience? It's kind of what you said, right? It's like marketing. It's your audience. Who's the audience for this film? It's never everybody. Yep. It's never everybody. Who is the, and then where does this audience live? Right? Because this audience, sometimes that audience literally only lives on Facebook. You're going to always get, other people coming in, but does this audience only read in newspapers? I don't know. Then maybe, maybe you got to get an ad in the New York Times, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, but it's always like, where do they live? How do I reach them? and what's the message, what's the like single message I can get to them to get them to watch it, and then what's the plan after, right? Because if you bring the audience in, they're with you, but you can't just let them fall off and die.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So what's next? Like, where are you going to go after you have them? They're like, oh yeah, I want to watch this film. Okay, yeah, I'm on board. Okay, great. And then kind of to your point about not making anything, if you don't make anything for the next 3 years, then your audience has kind of died off. And then you make something and you're like, hey guys, hey, remember me? And they're like, you
Who?
want me to watch this film? Who? What? It's been, you know what I mean? So I always say too, don't let your audience just go away. Don't let them just be in the forest after you brought them, right? Are you gaining fans for your career for life? Right? So if you're doing that, what does that look like? Right? And that doesn't always mean another film, but how are you keeping connected to them as a filmmaker, as an artist? Right? So did that answer that?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's so great.
Okay,
So backlogged, by the way, is going to be doing festivals now. Is that what kind of your goal? Okay, cool. So we'll chat about that and the
yeah.
BraveMaker Film Festival in July.
Ooh.
What as an actor, what are you? Let's talk about that journey. What are you kind of discovering and finding out as an actor? Is your filmmaking relationships building into opportunities for jobs as an actor? Because that's one of the things I'm with you. I love acting. I love directing. I love writing. But like on Monday, I got to act in somebody else's thing that I didn't write and I didn't direct. And I was like, oh, how great is that? Just to show up on set and do that, right? So let's hear about that part of your life. I'm curious. I know you recently you were on The Young and the Restless? Is that right?
Yes, I was. I was recently on Young and the Restless. And then I just wrapped a recurring role on a new Apple TV series. Yes, I just wrapped a recurring role on that. It's a period piece that comes out in the fall.
Cool.
With Brie Larson and Asia Naomi King. And it was fantastic. But also, so I was shooting that show when I got the call about directing the episode for television for AMC. And so then, like even more so on set, I'm like watching the director and I'm watching how they're communicating and I'm watching all the things. And I think that for me, being an actor has 1,000% helped me be a director, right? Like it is completely, as you know, right? Like the communication is so, it's just immediate, right? You're not like having to think through like what you're trying to say. I was like, wait, where's he going? You don't have to think through what you're trying to say. Like you can communicate clearly and you can act or speak, and so then they're like, yes, I get that. I know exactly what you mean, right? And so you can pull these things out of them that sometimes a director who's never acted before or taken an acting class can't. And I'm sure you've been there where you've been either on audition or on set and you're like, I don't know what it means when you say bigger, faster. I can't get my mind around that.
That is one of the things I'm teaching an acting class in March. And I, as a actor who's a director, I want to teach actors how to interpret bad direction because it happens all the time. And I was there too. There were times when I got so heady as a director and I could tell the actor was so confused, like,
right.
But how do I do this scene? And so as an actor, you've got to learn how to adjust when you have directors who don't know how to work with actors. So
right.
You're totally right.
Right.
It all feeds into each other.
They do. And also sometimes directors, if they're not an actor, also go a really long way around to get to what, and then you're like, oh, okay. So you were basically just saying, XYZ. And then you're like, oh, okay. That's what you were getting at. Right.
Yeah.
So I definitely think that's helped, but also being a producer as well, being a writer, being a filmmaker, it's helped me in my auditions because it frees me up to know that it's never about this job. It's always about whatever future jobs there are. It's about winning the room, which we feel like we know, but it has freed me up to go, stop being safe. Safe never does anything, right? And it also let me know that like, it doesn't matter how great you are. Like, you just don't get the job a lot of times, right? I mean, being a producer, there were so many people who auditioned for us who, even shooting the show, where I'm like, oh, that is incredible, and another producer, whoever would be like, they were really good. Yeah, not going to be able to cast them, but great. And you're like, oh, okay. right? And so it also just helped me to release some of that control,
Mm.
to know that it's not 1,000%, that just because you kill it and you're amazing doesn't mean you're going to get it, And so I think all of that has helped me to navigate both waters, because now I'm back auditioning, right? And I was like, oh, right, auditioning, right? Not directing, but back auditioning. It's like, what would I want to see if I was directing this? What's going to make me stand out on this? So I think that they're so connected. Um,
If you're watching, you won't be able to. You'll have to visualize this as you're listening to the podcast. We will edit this in the audio version, Keena, in a week. But I'm gonna play for those of you who are watching, either live or on the replay. We have your reel, and one of the first clips is from Atlanta. Which, how cool! You got to be on that show. I'd love to hear just kind of some of the stories, that stand out to you from your experiences. Like, what has been, you don't have to name names, what has been some of the greatest and some of the worst experiences as an actor working on some of these sets you've been on?
This Atlanta is definitely one of my favorites, for sure. Donald Glover is a genius. And because I booked this first 2 episodes of the season, I remember my agent even saying, like, I don't even know what this show really is. It's some Donald Glover untitled show. It's kind of weird. And I read the script and I was like, this is so good. You know what I mean? And so Donald is a genius. He is the writing, everything. So that's one of my favorites. Also, I did a movie with Stephen Dorff playing my husband, and that sticks out to me because I respect him so much as an actor, and I was like the only like kind of newbie to the movie, and it was great to work off of somebody like him who's just like just giving, but also like I could tell he was like, okay, so who are you? What are you? You're playing my wife. Let's see. And then like we did our first take, and I just remember he was like, oh yeah, just keep doing, yeah, you just do that. And it was like, I felt like he was like, oh yeah, okay, she's good, you know what I mean? And then we just got along so great, and we just, yeah, I loved working with him. We just had a blast.
Can you talk about, is there anything you would say for scene partners, for working opposite actors, that you go, these are some things that make it really click, and then these are some things that you should avoid? Right? Because your scene partner can make or break a scene sometimes.
Yeah. So, how should I answer this? So my process, I feel like my process is malleable, but one thing that I'm not a big person is I'm not a big rehearser. Like that's just not my process anymore. And one thing is like I'm okay saying like, no, I don't really want to run lines. That's fine, once to twice. But like, some people want to run it. And I'm kind of like, I don't want to like over rehearse it. That's not my process. I would say being able to be malleable as an actor and a scene partner is first. Like however this person wants to work, just give what you're giving, give what you're doing, and love the moments that you're not expecting. Love how that works. Also, I can tell immediately by questions that other actors will ask, scene partners will ask, how it's going to go. Like you can tell if they need a step-by-step guide. Okay, so you're going to move over here. And then are you thinking, to the ones that go, do whatever, I'll just follow. Like to me, that's what makes a great scene partner, when they're like, I'll go where you go. And you're like, great, I'm going where you go. And then you get to discover in the moment with all the work you've done. It's kind of the old saying. It's like you do all the work and then you forget it, right? Do all the work, forget it. And I feel like that's what happens. You do the work and then you forget it, and then you're just present. I'm just right here with you doing what you do. It's so weird to like talk. It's so great. I love it. I love to like, oh yeah, that. Like I feel like as artists, we need the reminders of like, oh, I did do that. Cool.
Yeah.
I did do that. Cool.
So if you're listening and you can't see while Keena is talking, clips are popping up from all her shows and films that she's done. You've done a lot of things. That's great.
I've done a lot of things. Yeah, I think that's the best thing, is like just be open to receive whatever it is that you're going to do, and just live in it. and not have any kind of preconceived, like, I have to do this and it has to be this. Just let it be, because some actors I've worked with that are so genius. I can just tell that they're just like, I have everything here, but I'm gonna go where you go, honey. So be ready for this ride. And you're like, oh, okay. And then beautiful things come out of that, right? And you watch it and you're like, I did a movie called Daughter of Fortune. It was a period piece. And that director just really let us live in things and just like kind of like let the surface kind of just like land. And man, every time I watch that film, I still feel everything as if I was really still living it, because it was so tangible and real in each moment. And that to me was like, oh, that's how I want to work,
Good. I love it. You're just talking about that creative process, and I kind of feel like when like you said this, when you're in the presence of an actor who's there, who's prepped, who's malleable. What's that word? Malleable. That's like malleable. Like, yeah, like that feels like we're going to play together and we're going to see where it goes. And that's a beautiful thing. Now I want to speak to, because I know some actors out there that might not be you. So you got to find out how to work in a space, because there are people who want to rehearse a lot, and I'm kind of with you. I don't want to rehearse the heck out of it, because I feel like if you rehearse it too much in film, theater's different, but in film, it's like being in front of that camera, you don't want to lose it, So if we're rehearsing outside or away from camera too much, I feel a little bit like, oh, it's going to jinx it or whatever. Yeah. So if you're that kind of actor for film, then you got to figure out what works for you. If you get a partner who doesn't want that, maybe you get another friend who rehearses a ton with you. But that's the part that I think is interesting. You just never know where and how the pieces of the puzzle are gonna come together, and then how the director fits into that. It really is challenging.
And I think the biggest thing to remember is that, like, I don't think there's one size fits all. I don't think there's, right? Like when I first started acting, I was like, okay, what is my process? Everyone's like, I do my process. I'm like, what's the process, right? Then I started to kind of like do this kind of hodgepodge of different things, right? And then I studied with Diana Castle, who I felt like really changed the way in which I worked. That's when I stopped kind of over rehearsing, and I kind of come from a place of the imagined life, as opposed to necessarily like, I'm going to imagine this is my dad. It's more like I will create this whole person, which just works for me, right? But then I was on Tyler Perry's show, and he moves lightning speed fast. So there really wasn't time for me to do that, like sit in it work that I wanted to do. It was only time for me to make sure I knew like all 8 pages that I'm about to do right now, right? And so my process changed in that. It was like I did a little bit of this kind of imagined life, but I rehearsed a whole lot because it was so many lines. And so I feel like you have to be able to decide, like, sometimes I get an audition. I had one the other day that was 10 pages. I was gone all weekend. It was like, I just got to run these lines a little bit because it's 10 pages. I don't know, And then sometimes I'm like, I feel it. I kind of know what this is. I don't need to run it, but I just need to like know who she is and what her relationship is to this person. The words don't mean anything. If I know that, I'm good. So I feel like the biggest thing is just to be able to know that there's no one way to do to do this acting thing. It just changes. It changes. And different characters move you different ways. There's sometimes I audition for something and I'm like, I don't feel as connected to this character, but what can I find in this character in this moment that does ground me? And maybe this is the absolute best that I have at 10 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday. Like this is all that I have for this character, and this is good enough, and this is great, and this is where I am. And that's what it is. You know what I mean? So, I feel like people get kind of rigid, and it's like, it's acting. You can't, it's play. Rigid and play.
So good. Oh gosh, so good. I love this stuff. Okay. So let's see. I have 1 or 2 more questions I can fit in here before we do our lightning round. Okay. Your website, by the way, if you're just tuning in and watching us on live, I'm talking to Keena Ferguson. This is episode 182 of the BraveMaker show. Keena is a multi-hyphenate actor, dancer, director, doing all the things, actor, creator, and you teach, you coach, you're doing all these things. So for people to find you, they can go to your website, KeenaFerguson.com. What's kind of like the person you love, to work with? Is it all of the above, actors, voiceover artists? Like, what is like the prime candidate coach for someone? Do they have to have an audition for you? Are you doing,
Oh, you mean if I'm coaching somebody?
Yeah.
Got it. So mostly I coach content creators, people who want, so the ideal candidate for me, I guess, would be someone who, oh, that's a good question. I would say someone who already knows exactly what it is that they want their project to do, right? Like, not that you have to have it all planned out, but like, you're like, I know I want to make this movie. Here is my idea. And this is what I've already started to do, right? So it's kind of like, yes. And my Now Go Get It Done website is my coaching website, which is going to be down for a week because I actually just hired a new web designer. But I would say someone who is very focused and someone who is willing to put the time in no matter what. Like, people who want to make the deadlines happen, because I'm going to give you, okay, we're going to meet next week. I'm going to give you this. Tell me, people who come with excuses like, I know, but I was really busy. It's like, I don't know, how bad do you want it? I can't want it more than you want it.
Oh my gosh, 100%.
So if you really want it, it's not my scripts. I'm getting them out there.
Yeah.
If you want your story out there, do you want it to sit on the shelf? So people who are motivated, who are ready to like go forward, and who are open to seeing the variety of ways in which to do their project. That's probably my ideal candidate. And something else I'll say to something you asked earlier. I have a client who's been with me, and one of the things he wanted to do was this TV show. He was pitching, trying to get it. And so he made it an audio series, right? I was like, let's make it an audio series. That way we can market it different. So we changed his whole marketing plan. We changed how he went about it. And now the interest that's coming to him is even broader than it was when he was just trying to get in the room to pitch his TV show. Now the options are larger and from different aspects that he was like, I was not even thinking of that. I'm like, I know, this is why we can't be just boxed into like, no, I'm going to write it and then I'm going to pitch it and they're going to pick it up and then it's going to be made. It's like, it's probably not going to happen that way.
Yep. I love that.
So many things can happen,
It's great. Be open. Yeah. One of my projects I wrote as a pilot live action, and then it morphed into animation. And then, there was closed doors. So I just contacted a friend of mine who's an artist. I said, could you let's make some graphic images, like some panels, some comic strips from these characters. And so that's been my thing. My way into the project has been creating these little 1 to 4 panel cartoons of the scenes, right?
I love that. Yes.
And then it feels like it didn't die.
No, and you don't know, like, my husband is a storyboard artist. He's a illustrator and all of that. And so he's done these 4 panel things, and he had a comic strip for a while in one of the papers in LA. And like, he's always like fine tuning within his illustration, and you don't know what's gonna pick up where, right? You don't know. But it's also why I say the passion for whatever story you're telling has to be there. Because there are going to be no's. There is going to be people going like, I don't really like all that's still going to happen. Just because you're creating your own content doesn't mean it's not going to be the same as like acting or when you're getting these no's. So if you're not passionate, you're going to get discouraged. But the same way that you were like, okay, animation, nope, it's not working. Okay, great. I do want this project to be out there. How about I put it on some things? Great. And then you get it out there, right? And I think ultimately that's where you have to be. It can't be something which is why you can't be doing something just because Hollywood's like, we're only looking for dramas. Well, we're only looking for family stories. And you're like, okay, great, I'll write a family story. Because, once that rejection or a detour happens, then you're not going to stick with it because you didn't believe in it in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, following the trends is very sticky. So all of us out here, do what you love, write what you're passionate about. That's what's going to drive it. And if you feel, here's the thing, I'm working on a 1-person show right now too, and I love it. It's so fun, and it's been, a whole learning experience in our studio here. We have 6 students. Tonight's our last class. We've been working together. It's been so fun, and it opened up some ideas and things for me. And now I'm like, okay, but am I ever going to perform it? And I go, I don't know if I'm ever going to perform it, but this was a really great experience for me to try different storytelling. And in some way, I'm like, I think I need to do it at least once just to try it. And if it doesn't like really stick, then I'll know. But your passion is going to make whatever you are supposed to be doing come alive and help you persevere, because perseverance is the secret, I think, to this
It is the
industry.
secret.
Just don't give up and something will happen, so
Yes, and anything I've ever done, I say this all the time, and it's on my website. I'm always like, you don't have to be great to get started, but you do have to get started to be great. And that, at the end of the day, is what I live by. It's like, you don't have to know it all. You don't have to know how you're going to get the money. You just have to get started. Once you get started, you know what I mean? Like, greatness isn't going to come if you never start.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think at the end of the day, it's just about that. And again, being open. When I did my one woman show, one character in particular is what led to me doing the short film that became an HBO nominated short film, because I had no thoughts about doing that as a film. It's just that this character touched people. So I was like, how can I make this character live? Oh, I really like this. Oh, and they could be this. And I could just tell it in a movie. And then I did it. And then HBO nominated. And I'm like, oh, that's being open to, creativity.
Perfect place to end. Thank you so much, Keena Ferguson. You can follow her at her website or her Instagram, Keena Star. Of course, her website is her name, KeenaFerguson.com. But don't go away, because we're going to end with our Brave
Faves. TV shows, films, books, songs, technology, clothing, podcast, food, and more. These are a few of our favorite people, places, and things. Brave Faves.
All right, I will go first. I have just one today, and it is bringing me such life. I am ready to do my second watching of this Oscar-nominated film, Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. It is so fun. Last night, I actually dreamt of hot dog fingers. So if you've seen it, you know.
Yes,
But last night, I had a dream. I had the hot dog fingers, which is a good side. So if you have not seen it, please see this. It is so wild and magical, and I'm so rooting for Michelle Yeoh. I just want her to win. I keep hearing, I'm listening to all the podcasts and all the conversations about, will she win the Best Actor? Again, we don't do these for awards, but I really think she deserves it. It was really great. I loved it. So Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. The Daniels, these two guys, 30-some years old, just won the DGA, the Directors Guild of America Award for this film. So there's some good movement here. And this is only their second film. Their first film, Swiss Army Man, which is wild and crazy. Definitely check it out. They took risks in this movie, in their style, in their vision, and it pays off. So that's my Brave Fave. What you got, Keena?
I have the 1619 Project by Nicole Hannah-Jones. Is that her name? Yeah. Yes, Nicole Hannah-Jones. It's so good. It's on Hulu. And it's just so enriching. It really mixes the past with the present, and it's told so beautifully from her own family's perspective. It's just so good. I'm just loving watching all of it. And I feel like she did something different with how she told this. And visually, as you can see here, it's just beautiful. So that's one of the things that I am totally loving right now. And I'm all the way in it.
And it's good for Black History Month, too. It's a great way. Yes.
Get your Black History credits.
If you want to get your Black History credits too, come next week. We're doing our Black History Month event with two Black filmmakers, Damian Smith and Kayla Robinson, in Redwood City. Go to BraveMaker.com and get your tickets. We have two great short films. We're going to be chatting about these two makers and their documentaries. So,
Damian is a dear friend of mine.
Damian is so great. I love Damian.
I have known him for years.
Really? Okay, yes. So I met him when, I forget which film it was that he did. We met in New York. We were both at a film festival together. We both had shorts, like 2015. And so I've known him since 2015. He's such a great guy.
I've been friends with Damian for years. I love what he's doing. We have talked many times about trying to do some stuff together because we're both we're
yes.
always
yes.
What are you doing? You working on that? Okay, good. I'm working on my film, like always. And so,
totally. Yes, that's so true.
Yeah, Damian is not going to sit still. He is not going to sit still. And
that's right. those people tend to gravitate to each other too, which I'm all for that. I'm all for that. Did you have another thing you wanted to? I think you had one more thing. It was like something in nature. Did you want to?
Yes. I'm all about sledding right now, guys. I went to Big Bear over the weekend with my kids and my husband. And if you haven't sled since you were like a little kid, you need to go sledding. Okay. Sledding is where it's at. The hills, the pop up and down. I screamed so much with like joy. It was great. And I got to be a kid. And
Lovely.
you know, in LA it's warm. So it was like I got to like get bundled and like it was fantastic. Go sledding.
Snow, baby. That's it. I love it. Good. All right, Keena, do not go away. So I have one more thing for you at the end here. But everybody else, gosh, thank you so much for listening and watching. This is so great, right? What we do, meeting these great people. Follow Keena, comment. You never know when you might meet up with Keena at a live event that BraveMaker does. We do these shows. I do these shows because I want to learn myself and I want to make connections. But we also do these for you all watching and learning and listening on the podcast. So please follow us on our YouTube channel, BraveMaker.org. Please rate and share our podcast audio or visually with your friends, because the more people that can find the show, the more movies we can make and the more filmmakers we can support. And you all know we are a nonprofit. So thank you so much for those of you who support us. We have 29 people, not a lot, but 29 people who support us every month with a donation of, listen to this, I think our lowest is $10 to $150. And I just got a one-time donation, which was so sweet. One person, this tells me they were sacrificing, gave a $3 donation today, just popped in there one time, just wanted to donate. I mean, no amount is too small to help us do this stuff, to help us have our studio, to make our movies, to have and buy our gear, to host our Black History Month event next Tuesday. So thank you to those of you who do support. I would encourage you, if you want to become a supporter, just use your phone, text the word BraveMaker to 44321. So finally, I want to say thank you to our producer, Amy Cohen out of Austin, Texas. Thank you, Amy, for doing all the behind the scenes work. To our intern, Jessica Cohen, who will take clips out of today's show and put them out on Instagram. To our podcast editor, Barnell Amos in Grand Rapids, Michigan, who edits all the audio stuff and puts it on all the platforms for you to listen to. And our social media manager, Carrie Alley. Thank you all so much for your work and partnership. If you want to be a part of our team, you can find me at Tony@BraveMaker.com. We'd love to have you next week. And every Wednesday at 4 p.m. is our show. We have the two actors, there's more than two, but two of the actors from my feature film, Last Chance Charlene, which comes out February 28th on all VOD platforms. My first feature film. We're going to talk about the making of that film and have Allison Ewing, who plays Charlene, and Cameron James Matthews, who plays Dino in the film. So do not miss it. All right, Keena Ferguson.
Thank you so much. This was amazing.
So fun, so inspiring. I love meeting and talking to people like you. But do not go away, because I want to talk to you afterwards real quick about Backlogged and some other stuff, okay?
I'm right here.
Don't go away. Everybody else, Brave Stories change the world. Have a great week and keep creating.
Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook at BraveMaker.org. Like, subscribe, and share. To become a monthly donor, text the word BraveMaker to 44321 or go to bravemaker.com/donate. Thanks for tuning in.